She was forced to abort her pregnancy by billionaire CEO husband. 3 years later, he sees her with twins who look like him. Those children. Whose children are they? Phoenix Caldwell froze at the sound of that voice. Deep, commanding, achingly familiar. She turned slowly, her heart hammering against her ribs as she faced the man who had shattered her world 3 years ago. Ronan Thorne stood 20 feet away in the crowded Seattle farmers market, his emerald eyes locked on the two identical little girls clinging to her hands. His face had gone white as winter frost. "I asked you a question, Phoenix." His voice was barely controlled fury. "Whose children are they?" "They're mine," she said quietly, instinctively moving to shield 4-year-old Arya and Ivy behind her legs. "That's not what I meant, and you know it." Ronan stepped closer, his gaze never leaving the twins. "They have my eyes. My jawline. They look exactly like my sister did at that age." "Mama, who is the angry man?" Arya whispered, her small hand tugging on Phoenix's sundress. "Just someone Mama used to work with, sweetheart. But he's looking at us funny," Ivy added, always the more observant of the twins. Ronan's breath came out in a harsh exhale. "You told me you terminated the pregnancy. You showed me the medical papers. You let me think our baby was gone." Phoenix lifted her chin, meeting his stare with steel in her brown eyes. "Our baby was never gone, Ronan. Our babies were just hidden from a man who wasn't ready to be a father. Babies. Plural." His voice cracked on the word. "You were carrying twins. I was carrying twins when you and your mother forced me into that clinic. I was carrying twins when you chose your family's reputation over our family's future. I was carrying twins when you handed me that check and told me to disappear." The color drained completely from Ronan's face as the full magnitude of her deception hit him. "My God, Phoenix, what have you done? Have you ever been pressured into making a choice that haunted you forever? Have you ever had someone use their power to control the most intimate decisions of your life?" This is exactly what happened when a young woman fell for her billionaire boss and found herself pregnant with twins she was forced to hide. But what Ronan Thorne didn't know was that Phoenix had played the ultimate game of deception. What he thought he destroyed had actually been protected in the most ingenious way possible. Stay with me to discover how a woman turned the tables on the man who tried to control her destiny, and what happened when he realized he'd been outsmarted by the one person he'd underestimated. If you believe in fighting back against those who try to control you, hit that like button and tell me in the comments what you would have done in her situation. But to understand how we got to this moment of devastating revelation, we need to go back 3 years. Back to when Phoenix Caldwell was a completely different woman living a completely different life. 3 years earlier, Phoenix Caldwell hurried through the gleaming lobby of Thorne Industries, her heels clicking against marble floors that probably cost more than her annual salary. At 24, she was the youngest senior marketing strategist the company had ever hired, and she felt the weight of that achievement every single day. "Miss Caldwell, Mr. Thorne wants to see you in his office immediately," his assistant announced as Phoenix reached her floor. Phoenix's stomach fluttered with a mixture of nerves and anticipation. In the 8 months since she'd started working at Thorne Industries, she'd had maybe a dozen direct interactions with Ronan Thorne himself. Each encounter left her more confused about the complicated dynamic between them. The elevator ride to the 52nd floor felt endless. When the doors opened, she stepped into the executive suite that occupied the entire top floor of the Seattle skyscraper. "Mr. Thorne will see you now," his assistant said, gesturing toward the massive oak doors of the corner office. Phoenix knocked once and entered without waiting for permission. Ronan Thorne stood with his back to the door, looking out at the panoramic view of Elliott Bay and the Olympic Mountains beyond. "You wanted to see me, sir?" He turned slowly, and Phoenix felt her breath catch the way it always did when she looked at him directly. Ronan Thorne was devastatingly handsome in the way that only came from generations of good breeding and unlimited resources. Dark hair that always looked perfectly tousled, emerald eyes that seemed to see straight through people, and a body that spoke of expensive personal trainers and exclusive gyms. "Close the door, Phoenix." The use of her first name made her pulse quicken. In meetings with other executives present, he always called her Ms. Caldwell. But when they were alone, which was happening with increasing frequency, the formality disappeared. She closed the door and moved toward his desk, hyper-aware of the way his eyes tracked her movement. The Morrison campaign exceeded all projections, Ronan said, moving to lean against the front of his desk. 40% increase in brand recognition, 60% jump in sales. The board is very impressed. Thank you, sir. I'm glad the strategy worked. It was brilliant. Unconventional, but brilliant. His voice dropped lower. You continue to surprise me, Phoenix Caldwell. There it was again. That undercurrent of something more than professional appreciation. Something that made her skin warm and her thoughts scatter. I just try to think outside traditional marketing frameworks. Is that what you call it? Ronan's smile was slow and dangerous. I call it genius. Phoenix felt her cheeks flush. I should get back to the Richardson proposal. The Richardson proposal can wait. Ronan moved closer, close enough that she could smell his expensive cologne and see the flecks of gold in his green eyes. I want to discuss your future with the company. My future? I'm creating a new position. Senior Vice President of Creative Strategy. The salary would be substantial. The responsibilities would include direct collaboration with me on all major campaigns. Phoenix's heart raced with excitement and something else entirely. That sounds incredible. There would be travel involved. Late nights. Very close working relationships. His voice carried implications that had nothing to do with business and everything to do with the tension that had been building between them for months. I understand. Do you, Phoenix? Ronan reached out to brush a strand of her auburn hair away from her face. Do you understand what I'm really offering you? The touch of his fingers against her skin sent electricity shooting through her entire body. She knew she should step back, should maintain professional boundaries, should remember that he was her boss, and she was just a girl from Tacoma whose father drove a delivery truck. Instead, she leaned into his touch. I think I do. Tell me what you think I'm offering. A chance to work more closely with you. To be part of something bigger than quarterly reports and campaign metrics. And personally, what am I offering you personally? Phoenix's breath came shorter as he stepped even closer, his hand still gently cupping her cheek. I don't know if I should answer that. Answer it anyway. You're offering me you. A chance to explore whatever this is between us. And what is this between us, Phoenix? I think you know. I want to hear you say it. Phoenix looked up into his eyes, seeing her own desire reflected back at her. Attraction. Chemistry. Something that could be amazing or could destroy my career. It won't destroy your career. I won't let it. You can't promise that. I can promise that I'll protect you. Always. The word hung between them, loaded with implications and possibilities. Before Phoenix could respond, Ronan leaned down and kissed her. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, as if he was giving her the chance to pull away. When she didn't, when she instead wound her arms around his neck and kissed him back, it deepened into something desperate and hungry. Phoenix, he murmured against her lips. I've wanted to do that for months. We shouldn't be doing this. Probably not. You're my boss. I'm aware. This could complicate everything. It already has. Despite her words, Phoenix made no move to step away from him. Instead, she found herself studying his face, memorizing the way he looked at her like she was something precious and rare. What happens now? She asked quietly. Now we see where this goes. Carefully, discreetly, and if it goes somewhere complicated, then we figure it out together. That was the beginning of the most intense and secretive 8 months of Phoenix's life. By day, they maintained perfect professionalism. She called him Mr. Thorne in meetings, he called her Ms. Caldwell in front of colleagues, and they discussed campaign strategies and market analysis with the focused attention of serious professionals. By night, they explored a connection that felt inevitable and dangerous in equal measure. You realize this is insane, Phoenix said one evening as they shared takeout Chinese food in his penthouse apartment overlooking the Sound. Completely insane, Ronan agreed, stealing a piece of her orange chicken with his chopsticks. Your family would hate me. My family hates everyone who isn't from their very small circle of approved bloodlines. I'm serious, Ronan. I'm nobody. My dad drives a delivery truck. My mom works at a daycare center. I went to community college before transferring to state school on academic scholarships. I don't fit into your world. Ronan set down his chopsticks and turned to face her fully. My world is whatever I choose to make it, and I choose to make it include you. It's not that simple. Why not? Because you're a thorn. Your great-grandfather built this company from nothing and turned it into an empire. Your family name is on buildings and hospital wings and scholarship foundations. You can't just date whoever you want without consequences. I can date whoever I love. The word stopped Phoenix's breath completely. Love. I love you, Phoenix Caldwell. I love your brilliant mind and your stubborn independence, and the way you challenge everything I thought I knew about what I wanted from life. Ronan. I love the way you scrunch your nose when you're concentrating on a problem. I love that you eat cereal for dinner when you're too tired to cook. I love that you argue with me about business strategy and win half the time. Phoenix felt tears threatening as she listened to this powerful, successful man list all the small, ordinary things about her that somehow made her extraordinary in his eyes. I love you too, she whispered. I've loved you for months, and it terrifies me. Why does it terrify you? Because love makes you vulnerable. And vulnerable people get hurt by powerful people. I would never hurt you. You might not mean to, but your family, your obligations, your legacy, all of that is bigger than what we have together. Nothing is bigger than what we have together. Phoenix wanted to believe him. For 8 beautiful, secret months, she let herself believe that love could conquer the enormous gulf between their backgrounds and expectations. She should have known better. The pregnancy changed everything, just not in the way Phoenix had expected. When she saw the 2 pink lines on the test in her tiny apartment bathroom, her first emotion was pure joy. She and Ronan had talked about the future, about building something real together. A baby would just accelerate those plans. She was so naive. Pregnant. Ronan's voice was barely above a whisper when she told him 3 days later in his office after hours. 8 weeks, according to the doctor. Are you sure? I'm sure. Ronan sank into his desk chair, his face going pale. This changes everything. I know, but it doesn't have to change it in a bad way. We love each other. We can make this work. Phoenix, you don't understand. My family, the board, the media attention this would generate. So we'll handle it. Together. It's not that simple. It could be that simple if you wanted it to be. Ronan was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the Seattle skyline, as if the answers to their problems were written in the lights of the city below. I need time to think. Time to think about what? About whether you want to be with me and our baby. Time to think about how to handle this properly. Phoenix felt the first cold fingers of dread creeping into her chest. Handle this properly? Ronan, I'm pregnant with your child. This isn't a business crisis that needs to be managed. Everything in my life is a business crisis that needs to be managed. Including me? Including us. That night, Phoenix lay awake in her bed, trying to ignore the growing certainty that the man she loved was already pulling away from her. The pregnancy that should have brought them together was instead driving a wedge between them, and she couldn't figure out how to stop it. Her fears were confirmed 2 days later when Ronan requested a meeting not in his office, but in the formal conference room on the executive floor. When Phoenix arrived, she found not just Ronan, but his mother Margaret Thorne waiting for her. Margaret Thorne was everything Phoenix had imagined and worse. Elegant in the way that only came from generations of wealth, beautiful in the cold, preserved way of women who had access to the best of everything, and intimidating in a manner that seemed bred into her very bones. Miss Caldwell, Margaret said without preamble as Phoenix took a seat across from them. My son has informed me of your situation. My situation? Your pregnancy. Phoenix looked at Ronan, searching his face for any sign of the man who had held her just days before, who had whispered promises of protection and forever. Instead, she saw a stranger wearing his face. Ronan, what is this? My mother wanted to discuss options with you. Options? Margaret leaned forward, her ice blue eyes never leaving Phoenix's face. You're a bright young woman, Miss Caldwell. Surely you understand that this pregnancy is problematic for all parties involved. Problematic? For you, for Ronan, for the family, for the company. An unmarried pregnancy between a CEO and his employee creates complications that benefit no one. Phoenix felt anger beginning to simmer beneath her shock. Are you suggesting I terminate my pregnancy? I'm suggesting you consider what's best for everyone involved. What's best for everyone involved is for Ronan and me to build a life together. We love each other. Margaret's laugh was like breaking glass. Love? My dear girl, you've confused a sexual relationship with love. Ronan has responsibilities that go far beyond romantic entanglements. Ronan. Phoenix turned to him desperately. Tell her this isn't just a sexual relationship. Ronan was quiet for a long moment, his hands folded on the conference table, his eyes focused anywhere but on her face. Phoenix, my mother is right about the complications this would create. Complications that we can handle together. No, complications that would destroy both of our careers and create a scandal that would damage the company my family has built for generations. Phoenix felt like she was drowning, like the air had been sucked out of the room. So that's it. You're choosing your family's reputation over our family. I'm choosing to be realistic about what's possible. What's possible? A few days ago you told me you loved me. You said nothing was bigger than what we had together. A few days ago, I wasn't thinking clearly. And now you are. Now I understand the stakes. Margaret reached into her purse and withdrew a folder, sliding it across the table to Phoenix. These are the details for a private clinic that handles situations like yours with complete discretion. All expenses paid, of course, plus compensation for your time and inconvenience. Phoenix stared at the folder without touching it. Compensation: $50,000, plus a glowing letter of recommendation that will ensure you can find employment anywhere in the country. You're paying me to abort my baby? We're offering you a generous settlement to resolve a situation that benefits no one if it continues. Phoenix looked at Ronan again, searching for any sign that he was as horrified by his mother's words as she was. And if I refuse? Margaret's smile was cold as winter rain. Then you'll find that your employment options in Seattle become quite limited. The Thorne family has significant influence in this city's business community. You're threatening me. I'm explaining reality. An unmarried secretary with an illegitimate child claiming paternity from one of Seattle's most prominent families would face significant challenges finding employment, housing, even basic services. I'm not a secretary. I'm a senior marketing strategist. You're whatever I choose to make you in the story that gets told. Phoenix felt like she was falling through ice, the cold shock of betrayal numbing her from the inside out. She turned to Ronan one final time. Is this what you want? For me to terminate our pregnancy and disappear from your life? Ronan was quiet for so long that Phoenix thought he might not answer at all. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely audible. I think it's for the best. For the best for who? For everyone. Including our baby? There is no baby, Phoenix. There's a pregnancy that was the result of poor judgment and worse timing. The words hit her like physical blows. Phoenix stood slowly, her legs shaky but her voice steady. You're right about one thing. This was the result of poor judgment. My poor judgment in believing that you were capable of love. Phoenix, don't say my name like it means something to you. Don't pretend this is difficult for you. You've made your choice. She looked down at the folder Margaret had placed before her, then back up at the two people who were so casually dismantling her entire world. I'll consider your offer. The appointment needs to be scheduled within the next few days, Margaret said briskly. These situations are easier to handle early in the pregnancy. I understand. Phoenix walked out of that conference room with her head held high and her heart shattered into pieces. But as the elevator descended from the executive floor to the parking garage, something else began to take shape inside her chest. Rage. Pure, focused, determined rage. They thought they could buy her compliance with threats and money. They thought she was just some naive girl who would fold under pressure from Seattle's elite. They thought they could force her to destroy her child to protect their precious reputation. They were about to learn how wrong they were. That evening, Phoenix sat in her best friend Luna Martinez's tiny kitchen, tears streaming down her face as she told the story of the most devastating day of her life. They want you to abort the baby? Luna asked, her voice incredulous. They're paying me to abort the baby. $50,000 plus a recommendation letter. And if you refuse? They destroy my career and make it impossible for me to find work in Seattle. Luna was quiet for a moment, her dark eyes flashing with anger. Bastards. I don't know what to do, Luna. I love this baby already, but I also can't raise a child if I'm unemployed and blacklisted. There has to be another way. What other way? They have all the power, all the money, all the connections. I'm just some nobody from Tacoma who thought she could play in their league. Luna studied her friend's face with the intensity of someone working through a complex problem. What if there was a way to protect the baby without them knowing about it? What do you mean? What if you let them think you're complying with their demands while actually protecting what matters most? Phoenix looked up through her tears. I don't understand. The appointment. What if you go to the appointment, but instead of terminating the pregnancy, you fake it? Fake an abortion? Luna, That's impossible. Is it? You show up at the clinic, you go through the motions, you get the paperwork they expect to see. But instead of actually ending the pregnancy, you just disappear for a while. They'll want proof. Medical records. Medical records can be faked, especially if you know someone who works in medical administration. Phoenix stared at her friend as the audacious scope of what she was suggesting began to sink in. You're talking about elaborate deception, forged documents, lying to everyone. I'm talking about protecting your child from people who would use threats and coercion to force you into a choice you don't want to make. And then what? I hide the pregnancy for 6 more months? I give birth in secret? I raise a child while pretending it doesn't exist. You disappear, leave Seattle, start over somewhere else. With what money? What job prospects? What future? With your talent, your education, and your determination. You're brilliant, Phoenix. You don't need Ronan Thorne or his family's approval to build a successful life. Phoenix felt something shifting inside her chest. Not just rage anymore, but something more powerful. Determination. It would have to be perfect. Every detail. One mistake, and they'd realize what I'd done. Then we make sure there are no mistakes. You think I'm letting you handle this alone? You're my best friend. This is our mission now. That night, Phoenix lay in bed with her hand on her still flat stomach, talking to the tiny life growing inside her. I don't know if what we're planning is right or wrong, baby, but I know that I love you more than anything in this world, and I won't let anyone force me to hurt you. We're going to disappear for a while. We're going to let the bad people think they won. But really, we're going to be building something beautiful together. Over the next 3 days, Phoenix and Luna crafted the most elaborate deception of their lives. Luna's cousin worked in medical records at 3 different clinics in the Seattle area. For $500, she was willing to create a complete set of documentation showing that Phoenix Caldwell had undergone a pregnancy termination procedure. The paperwork will be perfect, Luna assured her. Date stamped, signed by a real doctor, filed in the system. Anyone who requests copies will receive exactly what they expect to see. And the appointment itself? You show up at the clinic at the scheduled time. You check in under your real name. You go through the preliminary paperwork and consultation. But when it comes time for the actual procedure, you have a panic attack. A panic attack. You become hysterical. You change your mind. You leave without going through with it. Very dramatic, very emotional, very believable. And then you disappear for a week. During that week, the fake paperwork gets filed. When you return, you're devastated but recovering. You've lost the baby, you're heartbroken, and you want nothing more than to move on with your life. Phoenix marveled at the complexity of what they were planning. And if someone investigates too closely, why would they? They got what they wanted. The problem is solved. You're no longer pregnant, no longer a threat to their precious reputation. It could work. It will work. Because we'll make it work. The day of the appointment, Phoenix dressed carefully in clothes that made her look vulnerable and uncertain. She wore no makeup, pulled her hair back in a simple ponytail, and carried herself with the defeated posture of someone who had been broken by forces beyond her control. Ronan was waiting for her in the parking lot of the clinic. I wanted to be here, he said quietly as she approached, to support you through this. Phoenix almost laughed at the cruelty of his words. He wanted to support her through the termination of their pregnancy. The pregnancy he had forced her to end. That's not necessary. I know this is difficult. I know you're hurt and angry. But afterward, when this is over, maybe we can talk about rebuilding what we had. Phoenix stared at him in disbelief. Rebuilding what we had. This doesn't have to destroy us, Phoenix. We can get past this and find our way back to each other. You think I'm going to want to be with you after you forced me to abort our child? I think you'll understand that I was trying to protect both of us from a situation that would have ruined our lives. Our lives, or your reputation. Both. Phoenix felt a cold fury settle in her chest. This man actually believed that she would forgive him for this. That she would somehow be grateful for his protection. That they could resume their relationship as if nothing had happened. I need to go inside. I'll wait for you. Don't. When this is over, I don't want to see you again. Phoenix, don't say things you don't mean. I've never meant anything more in my life. Inside the clinic, Phoenix played her part perfectly. She filled out paperwork with shaking hands, answered questions in a barely audible voice, and submitted to preliminary examinations with the resignation of someone who had been defeated by circumstances beyond her control. But when the nurse called her name for the final procedure, Phoenix's carefully rehearsed breakdown began. "I can't do this," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I can't go through with it. Miss Caldwell, it's normal to feel nervous. The procedure is very safe and quick." "No, you don't understand. I can't kill my baby. I can't do what they want me to do." Phoenix's voice rose to near hysteria, drawing the attention of other patients and staff members. "I need to leave. I need to think about this more. Miss Caldwell, please calm down. We can discuss your options." "There are no options. Don't you understand? They're forcing me to do this. They're making me choose between my baby and my entire future." By the time security was called to help calm the distraught young woman, Phoenix had created exactly the kind of scene that would be remembered and reported. She left the clinic in tears, visibly shaken, and completely unpregnant as far as anyone could tell. The fake medical records were filed that afternoon. 2 days later, Phoenix received a call from Margaret Thorne's assistant. "Mrs. Thorne would like to confirm that your situation has been resolved." "It's been resolved. The documentation has been received and filed appropriately. Mrs. Thorne wanted me to convey her satisfaction with your handling of this matter. I'm sure she's very satisfied. Your final paycheck will include the agreed-upon compensation. Your letter of recommendation has been prepared and will be available upon request." "Thank you." Mrs. Thorne also wanted me to remind you that the confidentiality agreement you signed covers all aspects of your employment with Thorne Industries, including personal relationships with company executives. "I understand." "Excellent. Mrs. Thorne wishes you well in your future endeavors." That evening, Phoenix began executing the second phase of her plan. She submitted her resignation from Thorne Industries, citing personal reasons and a desire to relocate. She gave notice on her Seattle apartment and began researching job opportunities in Portland, Oregon. To everyone who knew her, Phoenix Caldwell was a heartbroken young woman who had been involved in a painful relationship with her boss, gotten pregnant, terminated the pregnancy, and was now starting over in a new city. The truth was far more complicated. Phoenix was a pregnant woman who had outmaneuvered some of the most powerful people in Seattle, protecting her unborn child through an elaborate deception that required her to disappear from everything and everyone she had ever known. 3 weeks after the fake abortion, Phoenix drove south to Portland with all her possessions packed into her Honda Civic and a secret growing stronger inside her every day. "Just you and me now, baby," she whispered, one hand on her still-hidden belly as she crossed the Columbia River. "We're going to build something beautiful together, something real, something that belongs to us and no one else." But Phoenix had no idea that the single baby she thought she was protecting was actually 2 babies. And she had no idea that 3 years later, fate would bring her face to face with Ronan Thorne in the most public, devastating way possible. The morning she had dreaded for 3 years had finally arrived, and the twins whose existence she had hidden were about to change everything forever. I need to pause here because what happens next will absolutely blow your mind. Drop a heart in the comments if you think Phoenix was a genius for protecting her babies this way. And make sure you're subscribed because you won't want to miss how this confrontation ends and what Ronan does when he realizes he's been outsmarted by the woman he underestimated. Portland, Oregon became Phoenix's sanctuary and her proving ground all at once. She rented a tiny studio apartment in the Pearl District with the money she'd saved from her Thorne Industries salary, determined to make it on her own without touching the blood money Margaret Thorne had paid for her silence. The first months were brutal. Portland's tech scene was competitive, and being an unknown quantity from Seattle with a sudden gap in her employment history made job hunting nearly impossible. Phoenix spent her days sending out resumes and her evenings working freelance marketing projects that barely covered rent and groceries. "You're sure you don't want to tell them about the pregnancy?" Luna asked during one of their nightly phone calls. "Some companies have great maternity benefits, and some companies don't hire visibly pregnant women regardless of what the law says," Phoenix replied, unconsciously placing her hand on her growing belly. At 4 months, she was still able to hide her condition under loose clothing, but that window was closing fast. "You can't hide it forever. I don't need forever. I just need long enough to establish myself as valuable before they realize I come with complications." Phoenix's breakthrough came in the form of a small sustainable fashion startup called Verde Threads. The company was too new and too desperate for talent to be picky about employment gaps or references from previous employers. They needed someone who could develop their brand identity and marketing strategy on a shoestring budget. "We can't pay much," admitted Cora Nakamura, Verde Thread's 26-year-old founder, during Phoenix's interview. "But we can offer equity and the chance to build something from the ground up." "That's exactly what I'm looking for," Phoenix said, and meant it. Working for Verde Threads felt like coming home in a way that Thorn Industries never had. The team was small, scrappy, and passionate about their mission to create ethical fashion that didn't cost the earth. Phoenix threw herself into the work with an intensity that impressed even Cora. "You're either a workaholic or you're running from something," Cora observed one evening as they stayed late to finish a campaign pitch. "Maybe both," Phoenix admitted. "Want to talk about it?" Phoenix looked at her new boss, this young woman who had risked everything to build something meaningful, and felt a kinship she'd never experienced in the corporate world. "I'm pregnant," she said quietly. Cora's eyebrows shot up. "How pregnant?" 5 months. 5 months. How have you been hiding that?" Phoenix gestured to her loose-fitting sweater and strategic layering. "Very carefully. Is the father in the picture?" "No. He made it very clear that he didn't want this baby or me." Cora was quiet for a moment, studying Phoenix's face with the kind of direct assessment that came from someone who had learned to read people quickly and accurately. "His loss," she said finally. "Our gain." "You're not firing me? For being pregnant? Are you kidding? I need someone with your skills and dedication. Besides, some of my best work happened when I was running on pure maternal instinct." "You have kids?" "A daughter. She's 3. Her father is also not in the picture, but for different reasons." Cora's expression darkened briefly. "Some men aren't built for the long haul." That conversation marked the beginning of a friendship that would sustain Phoenix through the most challenging period of her life. Cora became not just her boss, but her mentor, her cheerleader, and eventually, her chosen family. "You know," Cora said one afternoon as they brainstormed campaign ideas, "Verde Threads could use a Portland office. Someone to handle West Coast operations while I manage things from San Francisco." Phoenix looked up from her laptop. "Are you offering me a promotion to a job that doesn't exist yet?" "I'm offering you a partnership. 20% equity, full autonomy over Portland operations, and a salary that'll let you support a baby without eating ramen every night." "Cora, I can't accept charity. This isn't charity. This is me recognizing talent and locking it down before you realize you could make twice as much somewhere else." The promotion came just in time. At 7 months pregnant, Phoenix was running out of ways to disguise her condition, and the physical demands of her work were becoming overwhelming. But with her new position came a small office, a modest but steady salary, and something even more valuable than money: respect. "You're glowing," her doctor, Dr. Sarah Kim, said during a routine checkup. "How are you feeling?" "Tired, anxious, excited, terrified. The usual." "Any word from the father?" Phoenix had been honest with Dr. Kim about her situation, at least the basic facts. Powerful ex-boyfriend who didn't want the baby, threats to her career, the decision to start over in a new city. "No, and I don't expect any. As far as he knows, this pregnancy doesn't exist." "That must be difficult." "It's liberating, actually. I don't have to worry about his opinion or his family's interference. This baby and I get to build our life exactly the way we want it. Just remember that children often have questions about their fathers as they get older. I'll deal with that when the time comes." But Dr. Kim's words planted a seed of worry that would grow larger as Phoenix's pregnancy progressed. What would she tell her child about their father? How would she explain why half their genetic history was off limits? Those concerns became secondary when Phoenix went into labor 6 weeks early on a rainy February morning. "It's too soon," she gasped to Luna, who had driven down from Seattle to be with her for the birth. "Babies come when they're ready," Luna said calmly, though Phoenix could see the worry in her eyes. "Let's get you to the hospital." The labor was long and complicated. After 18 hours of increasingly intense contractions, Dr. Kim made a decision that would change everything. "Phoenix, I need to do an emergency ultrasound. The baby's heart rate is concerning, and I want to check positioning. Is something wrong? I just want to make sure we're prepared for all possibilities." Dr. Kim moved the ultrasound wand over Phoenix's swollen belly, her expression growing more surprised by the second. "Phoenix, I need you to stay calm. But I'm seeing something unexpected here. What? Is the baby okay? The babies are fine. Phoenix, you're carrying twins. The words hit Phoenix like a physical blow. What? 2 babies. Somehow we missed it in your earlier ultrasounds, probably because one was hiding behind the other. But I'm definitely seeing 2 distinct heartbeats, 2 separate bodies. Phoenix stared at the ultrasound screen, trying to process what she was seeing. 2 babies. 2 tiny humans who would depend on her for everything. 2 children whose father didn't even know they existed. Twins, she whispered. Twin girls, from what I can see. Are you okay? Phoenix felt tears streaming down her face, but she wasn't sure if they were from joy or terror. I'm alone. I can't raise twins alone. You're not alone, Luna said firmly, taking her hand. You have me. You have Cora. You have a whole community of people who care about you. But their father made his choice. Now you get to make yours. Phoenix's choice was to love her daughters with every fiber of her being. Arya and Ivy Caldwell were born at 34 weeks, small but healthy, with the kind of distinctive features that would make their parentage unmistakable to anyone who knew how to look. They have his eyes, Phoenix whispered as she held them for the first time, studying their tiny faces with wonder and heartbreak. They have your strength, Luna replied. That's more important. The next 3 years passed in a blur of sleepless nights, first steps, first words, and the indescribable joy of watching 2 tiny humans develop their own personalities. Arya was the artist, always drawing or painting or building elaborate structures out of blocks. Ivy was the analyst, taking apart toys to see how they worked and asking endless questions about everything she encountered. Phoenix threw herself into building Verde Thread's Portland operation with the same intensity she brought to mothering. The company grew from a scrappy startup to a nationally recognized brand, with Phoenix's marketing strategies earning attention from major retailers and fashion magazines. You're brilliant at this, Cora said during one of their quarterly business reviews. Have you ever considered starting your own agency? My own agency. Phoenix, you've turned Verde Threads into a household name. Imagine what you could do with multiple clients, your own team, your own vision. The idea took root slowly but steadily. By the time Arya and Ivy turned 3, Phoenix had developed a business plan for Caldwell Creative, a boutique marketing agency specializing in sustainable and ethical brands. I want to do it, she told Luna during one of their regular video calls. I want to build something that's entirely mine. Go for it. You've got the skills, the connections, and the track record. And 2 toddlers who need stability and health insurance. 2 toddlers who need a mother who's fulfilled and challenged and building the kind of life she wants them to inherit. Phoenix spent months preparing for the transition, saving money, developing client relationships, and creating the infrastructure for her new business. When she finally submitted her resignation from Verde Threads, Cora surprised her with an offer. We want to be your first client. Exclusive West Coast representation, 2-year contract, enough money to get you started properly. Cora, I can't take advantage of our friendship. You're not taking advantage. You're accepting the recognition you've earned. Caldwell Creative launched on Arya and Ivy's 3rd birthday, with Phoenix working from a small office space in Southeast Portland while the girls attended a cooperative preschool run by other entrepreneurial parents. Mama, what do you do at work? Arya asked one evening as Phoenix tucked her into bed. I help people tell stories about their businesses. I help them explain why what they do is important and why people should care about it. Like when I draw pictures to show my feelings. Exactly like that, sweetheart. I help businesses draw pictures with words. Are you good at it? I'm very good at it. Good. I want you to be the best at everything. Phoenix's heart clenched with love and determination. Her daughters would grow up seeing her as capable, independent, and successful. They would never doubt that women could build empires from nothing, that single mothers could thrive, that love and hard work could overcome any obstacle. But they would also grow up with questions about their father that Phoenix wasn't sure she was ready to answer. Mama, why don't we have a daddy? Ivy asked one afternoon as they watched other families at the playground. Phoenix had been dreading this conversation for months, knowing it was inevitable, but hoping to delay it as long as possible. Some families have mommies and daddies. Some families have 2 mommies or 2 daddies. And some families have just one parent who loves their children very much. But where is our daddy? Your daddy lives far away, and he's not able to be part of our family right now. Why not? Sometimes grown-ups make choices that mean they can't be together, even when there are children involved. Does he know about us? Phoenix felt her throat tighten. He knows you exist, but he's not ready to be a daddy. Will he ever be ready? I don't know, sweetheart. But you don't need to worry about that. You have me, and you have each other, and you have all the people who love you. That's more than enough. I wish he wanted to meet us, Arya said quietly. Maybe someday he will. But for now, we're perfect just the way we are. Phoenix believed that, mostly. She had built a life that felt complete and fulfilling. Her business was thriving. Her daughters were healthy and happy. And she had created the kind of financial and emotional security that meant she never had to depend on anyone else for survival. But late at night, when the girls were asleep and the house was quiet, Phoenix sometimes wondered what Ronan would think of the amazing little people he had unknowingly helped create. Would he see himself in Arya's stubborn determination or Ivy's analytical mind? Would he regret the choice he had made, or would he still believe that protecting his reputation was more important than knowing his children? She was about to find out. The invitation to her sister Sage's wedding arrived on a Tuesday morning in March, along with a note that made Phoenix's blood run cold. I know you've been avoiding Seattle, but I need my maid of honor with me. Please don't let whatever happened with that job keep you from being here for the most important day of my life. I love you, Sage. Phoenix stared at the elegant wedding invitation with its Seattle venue address and felt her carefully constructed world tilting on its axis. Sage was getting married at the Fairmont Olympic Hotel, one of Seattle's most prestigious venues. The kind of place where Seattle's elite gathered for major social events. The kind of place where she might run into Ronan Thorne. I can't go, she told Luna during their next phone call. It's your sister's wedding. It's too risky. What if I see him? What if he sees the girls? Phoenix, you can't hide from Seattle forever. And Sage needs you. I'll send a gift and my regrets. You'll break her heart. Phoenix knew Luna was right, but the thought of returning to Seattle with Arya and Ivy made her panic in ways she hadn't felt since the early days of her pregnancy. What if he recognizes them? They look exactly like him, Luna. Any idiot could see the resemblance. So what if he does? You're not the same person you were 3 years ago. You're successful, independent, and you've raised 2 amazing children without his help. He has no power over you anymore. He could try to claim custody. Based on what? He forced you to terminate the pregnancy, remember? As far as anyone knows, those children can't be his. Phoenix felt some of her panic subsiding as she considered Luna's logic. The fake abortion had been so carefully orchestrated that even medical records supported the fiction that she had terminated her pregnancy. Ronan couldn't claim children who weren't supposed to exist. Besides, Luna continued, what are the chances you'd actually run into him? Seattle's a big city. Famous last words, Phoenix thought 3 weeks later as she stood frozen in Pike Place Market, her daughter's hands clutched in hers, staring at the man who had shattered her world 3 years ago. Those children. Whose children are they? The question hung in the air like a live wire as Ronan Thorne stood 20 feet away, his emerald eyes locked on Arya and Ivy with an expression of shock and growing recognition. They're mine, Phoenix said quietly, instinctively moving to shield her daughters behind her legs. That's not what I meant, and you know it. Ronan stepped closer, his gaze never leaving the twins. They have my eyes. My jawline. They look exactly like my sister did at that age. Mama, who is the angry man? Arya whispered, her small hand tugging on Phoenix's sundress. Just someone Mama used to work with, sweetheart. But he's looking at us funny. Ivy added, always the more observant of the twins. Ronan's breath came out in a harsh exhale. You told me you terminated the pregnancy. You showed me the medical papers. You let me think our baby was gone. Phoenix lifted her chin, meeting his stare with steel in her brown eyes. Our baby was never gone, Ronan. Our babies were just hidden from a man who wasn't ready to be a father. Babies. Plural. His voice cracked on the word. You were carrying twins. I was carrying twins when you and your mother forced me into that clinic. I was carrying twins when you chose your family's reputation over our family's future. I was carrying twins when you handed me that check and told me to disappear. The color drained completely from Ronan's face as the full magnitude of her deception hit him. My God, Phoenix. What have you done? Phoenix felt 3 years of suppressed anger finally breaking free. What have I done? I protected my children from people who would use threats and coercion to control their lives. I gave them a chance to grow up loved and wanted instead of resented and hidden. They're my children too, are they? Because 3 years ago, you made it very clear that any children I carried were problems to be solved, not blessings to be celebrated. I was wrong. I was scared and stupid, and I made the worst mistake of my life. Yes, you did. And the consequence of that mistake is that these beautiful little girls grew up without knowing they had a father. Ronan looked at Arya and Ivy, who were watching this exchange with the kind of serious attention that very young children brought to adult drama they didn't understand but could sense was important. Can I talk to them? No. Phoenix, please. They're my daughters. They're my daughters. You're just the man who provided half their DNA and then walked away. I didn't walk away. I thought they were dead. You walked away from me. You walked away from the possibility of them. You chose your mother's approval over the chance to build a family with someone who loved you. Ronan was quiet for a long moment, staring at the two little girls who looked so much like him that denial was impossible. What are their names? Phoenix hesitated, then decided that withholding basic information would only make her look petty. Arya and Ivy. Arya and Ivy. He repeated softly, as if testing the words. They're beautiful. They're perfect. I want to know them. I want to be part of their lives. Too late. It's not too late. I'm here now. I know they exist now. Everything can change from this moment forward. Phoenix felt a bitter laugh escape her throat. Everything changed 3 years ago when you chose your reputation over your family. This is just you finally seeing the consequences of that choice. Mama, I'm scared, Arya whispered, pressing closer to Phoenix's leg. Why is the man making you cry? Ivy added, her young voice fierce with protective anger. Phoenix realized that tears were streaming down her cheeks, that her daughters were seeing their mother break down in public because of this stranger who was looking at them with desperate longing. We're leaving, she said firmly, turning to guide Arya and Ivy away from the market. Phoenix, wait. Please. We need to talk about this properly. There's nothing to talk about. There's everything to talk about. Custody arrangements, financial support, their futures. Phoenix spun around, her eyes blazing with fury. Custody? You want to talk about custody? You have no legal claim to these children, Ronan. As far as the law is concerned, you forced me to terminate this pregnancy 3 years ago. That's not what happened. That's exactly what happened. You just didn't realize I was smart enough to protect them from you. I'm their father. You're a sperm donor. Their father would have been there for their birth, their first steps, their first words. Their father would have held them when they were sick and read them bedtime stories and taught them to ride bikes. I want to do all those things now. Now, when it's convenient for you, when the hard work of raising them is already done. I didn't know they existed, because you didn't want them to exist. Ronan looked desperately between Phoenix and the twins, who were watching this exchange with growing confusion and distress. How do I fix this? Tell me how to fix what I've broken. You can't fix it. Some things can't be repaired, only replaced. And I've already replaced you with something better. What's better than their actual father? A life where they're loved unconditionally. A life where they don't have to compete with family reputation and business interests for affection. A life where they're valued for who they are, not what they represent. Phoenix turned away again, but Ronan's voice stopped her. I'll fight for them. The threat was quiet but unmistakable. Phoenix felt ice forming in her veins as she turned back to face him. What did you say? I said I'll fight for custody. They're my daughters, and I have rights. You have no rights. You terminated those rights when you forced me to end my pregnancy. I never forced you to do anything. I made suggestions, you made choices. Phoenix stared at him in disbelief. Suggestions? Your mother threatened to destroy my career and blacklist me from working anywhere in Seattle. You offered me money to eliminate my pregnancy. Those weren't suggestions, they were extortion. You could have said no. I did say no, just not the way you expected. The point is, these children exist, they're mine, and I want to be part of their lives. If you won't cooperate voluntarily, I'll pursue legal channels. Phoenix felt panic rising in her throat, but she forced her voice to remain steady. Try it. See what happens when you have to explain to a judge why you're claiming children who were allegedly aborted 3 years ago. Medical records can be wrong. DNA tests can't be. DNA tests require consent from both parents. Good luck getting mine. I don't need your consent if I can prove they're mine through other means. You're threatening me again, just like your mother did 3 years ago. I'm telling you that I won't be shut out of my children's lives because you're angry about the past. Phoenix looked at this man who had once held her heart in his hands, who had whispered promises of protection and forever, who was now threatening to tear apart the life she had built for her daughters. "Girls, we're going back to the hotel now," she said quietly. "But Mama, we didn't get the flowers yet," Arya protested. "We'll get flowers another time, sweetheart." As Phoenix guided her daughters away from the market, she could feel Ronan's eyes following them. She knew this wasn't over, that he would find ways to insert himself into their lives whether she wanted him to or not. But she also knew something he didn't. She was no longer the naive young woman who had been intimidated by threats and coercion. She was a successful businesswoman, a fierce mother, and someone who had outmaneuvered the Thorne family once before. If Ronan wanted a fight, she would give him one. But this time, she held all the cards. That evening, Phoenix sat in her hotel room, watching Arya and Ivy color in their activity books, while she tried to process what had happened at the market. The girls seemed to have recovered quickly from the encounter, but Phoenix could see that they were more thoughtful than usual. "Mama, why was that man so interested in us?" Ivy asked, looking up from her coloring book. "Some people are just curious about children. But he looked at us like he knew us," Arya added. "Like when Grandma Rosa looks at old pictures and gets sad happy." Phoenix's heart clenched at her daughter's perceptiveness. Sometimes adults have complicated feelings that are hard to understand. Was he someone important? "He was someone I used to know a long time ago, before you were born." "Did you like him?" Phoenix paused, considering how to answer honestly without sharing information that would confuse or upset them. "I thought I did, but it turned out he wasn't the person I thought he was." "Is that why you looked scared when he talked to you?" "I wasn't scared, sweetheart. I was just surprised to see him." "Will we see him again?" "I hope not." But Phoenix's hope was short-lived. The next morning, a knock at her hotel room door revealed a hotel employee holding an enormous bouquet of flowers. "Delivery for Phoenix Caldwell." Phoenix tipped the delivery person and carried the flowers inside, her hands shaking as she opened the card. "For Arya and Ivy, who are more beautiful than their mother ever described. I want to know everything about them. I want to be the father they deserve. Please don't make this harder than it has to be." "Ronan." "Mama, those are pretty flowers," Arya said, bouncing over to examine the arrangement. "Who sent them?" Ivy wanted to know. "Someone who thinks he knows us better than he actually does." Phoenix threw the card in the trash and tried to distract the girls with plans for the day, but her phone buzzed constantly with texts from unknown numbers. "We need to talk. This is too important to handle through anger and hurt feelings. I've hired a family law attorney. I'd prefer to work this out between us, but I will pursue legal options if necessary. I know you hate me, but please don't punish our daughters for my mistakes." Phoenix turned off her phone and focused on enjoying the rest of their Seattle visit, but the shadow of Ronan's threats hung over everything. At Sage's wedding rehearsal dinner, she found herself scanning the crowd nervously, afraid that he might somehow appear among the guests. "You look like you're expecting an assassination attempt," Sage observed, joining Phoenix at the bar. "Just tired." The girls were up early. "Phoenix, what's wrong? You've been jumpy and distracted since you got here." Phoenix considered telling her sister the truth, but Sage was getting married in 18 hours and didn't need the drama of her maid of honor's complicated past. "Just work stress. You know how it is when you leave town and everything piles up." "Are you sure that's all?" "I'm sure. Now let's focus on you and Marcus. This is your time." The wedding ceremony was beautiful, held in the Fairmont Olympics Grand Ballroom with its soaring ceilings and crystal chandeliers. Phoenix stood beside her sister as she exchanged vows with Marcus, a kind pediatric surgeon who clearly adored Sage with the kind of uncomplicated devotion Phoenix had once thought she'd found with Ronan. "Do you, Marcus, take Sage to be your wife, to love and support her dreams, to stand by her in times of challenge and celebration, and to build a life together based on mutual respect and genuine partnership?" "I do." "Do you, Sage, take Marcus to be your husband, to love and support his dreams, to stand by him in times of challenge and celebration, and to build a life together based on mutual respect and genuine partnership?" "I do." Phoenix felt tears streaming down her cheeks as she watched her sister marry someone who would never ask her to choose between love and self-respect, who would never use threats and coercion to control her choices, who saw her as an equal partner rather than a possession to be managed. During the reception, Phoenix kept Arya and Ivy close to her side, knowing that Seattle's social elite were exactly the kind of people who might recognize the Thorne family resemblance in her daughter's features. "Aunt Phoenix, can we dance?" Arya asked, tugging on her hand. "Of course, sweetheart." Phoenix led her daughters onto the dance floor, lifting them both so they could sway to the music together. For a moment, surrounded by love and celebration, she felt like they were just a normal family enjoying a wedding reception. Then she saw him. Ronan stood at the edge of the ballroom, wearing a perfectly tailored tuxedo and watching them dance with an expression of such longing that it made Phoenix's chest tight with unwanted sympathy. "Girls, let's go get some cake," she said quickly, carrying them off the dance floor. "But we were dancing," Ivy protested. "We can dance more later. Right now I think there's chocolate cake that needs our ATT. "Hello, Phoenix. What are you doing here?" "Marcus Patterson is my college roommate. I'm here for his wedding." Phoenix felt the blood drain from her face. Of all the weddings in Seattle, Ronan had to be at her sister's. "Mama, it's the man from the market," Arya whispered loudly. "Hello, Arya," Ronan said softly, kneeling down to her eye level. "You look very pretty in your dress." "Thank you," Arya replied politely, but Phoenix could see her pressing closer to her mother's leg. "And you must be Ivy," Ronan continued, looking at the other twin with wonder. "I'm Ronan. Why are you looking at us like that?" Ivy asked with her typical directness. "Like what?" "Like you're trying to memorize our faces." Ronan glanced up at Phoenix, who was standing frozen with panic and fury. "Because you remind me of someone very special." "Who?" "Someone I used to know when I was younger." "Mama, can we go get cake now?" Arya asked, clearly uncomfortable with the attention. "Yes, sweetheart. We're going to get cake right now." Phoenix moved to guide her daughters away, but Ronan stood, blocking their path. "Could I speak with you privately for a moment?" "No." "Phoenix, please. 5 minutes." I said no. "I'm not going away. You can talk to me here in front of them, or you can talk to me privately. But we are going to talk." Phoenix looked at her daughters, who were watching this exchange with growing distress, then at the wedding guests who were beginning to notice the tension. "Sage," she called to her sister, who was dancing nearby. "Could you keep an eye on the girls for a few minutes?" "Of course," Sage said, though Phoenix could see questions in her eyes. "Aunt Sage, we want cake," Arya announced. "Then cake we shall have. Come on, ladies, let's find the best pieces." Phoenix watched her daughters walk away with Sage, then turned to face Ronan with ice in her veins. "You have 5 minutes. Let's step outside." They moved onto the hotel's terrace, where the sounds of the reception faded into background noise. Seattle's skyline glittered beyond the railing, beautiful and cold in the evening light. "They're extraordinary," Ronan said quietly. "Yes, they are. Arya is artistic, like you. I could see it in the way she was moving to the music, finding patterns and rhythms. You don't know anything about them. And Ivy is analytical. She sizes people up, asks the right questions. She's going to be formidable when she's older. You don't get to make observations about my daughters based on a 5-minute interaction. Our daughters. My daughters. You gave up any claim to them when you tried to force me to end my pregnancy." Ronan was quiet for a moment, staring out at the city lights. "I know you'll never forgive me for that. I know I destroyed something precious and irreplaceable. But they're here now. They exist, and they deserve to know their father. They deserve to know a father who wants them, not a father who sees them as problems to be managed. I don't see them as problems. I see them as miracles. Now you do, when it's convenient for you, when the hard work of raising them is already done. I want to do the hard work now. I want to be part of their lives going forward. Why? So you can tear apart the stability I've built for them? So you can confuse them with complicated custody arrangements and family politics? So I can love them the way they deserve to be loved." Phoenix felt a bitter laugh escape her throat. "You don't know how to love anyone more than you love your reputation. You're wrong about that. Am I? Then prove it. How? Walk away. Right now. Go back to your perfect life and leave us alone." "I can't do that." "Why not?" "Because I love them already. Because seeing them tonight, talking to them, watching you with them, I realized what I've been missing for 3 years. I realized what my life could have been if I'd been brave enough to choose love over fear. Phoenix studied his face in the dim terrace lighting, looking for any sign of manipulation or calculation. Instead, she saw something she'd never expected: genuine regret and desperate hope. It's too late for regrets, Ronan. Is it too late for change? Some changes are too big to make. Some mistakes are too fundamental to overcome. What if I told you I'd give up everything? The company, the family money, the social connections. What if I walked away from all of it to prove that they matter more to me than anything else? I'd say you were making grand gestures to manipulate my emotions. And if I actually did it? If I actually walked away from everything to build a life that revolved around being their father? Phoenix was quiet for a long moment, considering his words. The Ronan she had known 3 years ago would never have considered sacrificing his family legacy for anything. But people could change, especially when faced with losing something precious. You want to know what I think? She said finally. Yes. I think you're having a midlife crisis brought on by seeing what you lost. I think you're romanticizing fatherhood because you've never had to do the real work of parenting. I think you're confusing regret with love. You're wrong. Am I? Have you thought about what being their father actually means? Not just the fun parts, like teaching them to ride bikes or taking them to the zoo. The hard parts. The middle of the night fevers and the tantrums in grocery stores and the endless questions and the way they take over your entire life. I want all of it. You want the idea of it. Reality is different. Then let me learn the reality. Give me a chance to prove I can be the father they deserve. Phoenix felt her resolve wavering slightly. Not because she believed he had changed, but because she could see how much Arya and Ivy had enjoyed talking to him earlier. They had never had a father figure in their lives, and she sometimes wondered if she was depriving them of something important. If I were to consider allowing you into their lives, there would be conditions. Ronan's face lit up with hope. Anything. Supervised visits only. They don't need to know you're their father until I decide they're ready for that information. And at the first sign that you're using them to manipulate me, or that you're treating them as accessories to your life rather than real people, you disappear forever. Agreed. I'm not agreeing to anything yet. I'm just telling you what the conditions would be if I were to consider it. What would it take for you to consider it? Time. Consistency. Proof that you've actually changed, and that this isn't just some emotional reaction to seeing them unexpectedly. How much time? As much as it takes. Before Ronan could respond, the terrace doors opened, and Sage appeared with Arya and Ivy in tow. Sorry to interrupt, but someone was getting worried about where Mama went. We thought you left, Arya said, running to Phoenix and wrapping her arms around her legs. I would never leave without telling you, sweetheart. Is everything okay? Sage asked, her eyes moving between Phoenix and Ronan with growing suspicion. Everything's fine. Mr. Thorne was just leaving. Actually, Ronan said quietly, I was wondering if Arya and Ivy might like to dance. Just one song. I don't think that's appropriate. Please, Mama, Arya asked. I like to dance. Me too, Ivy added. Phoenix looked at her daughter's eager faces, then at Ronan's hopeful expression, then at Sage's confusion. One song, but I'm staying right here. She watched from the edge of the dance floor as Ronan knelt down to the twins' level, showing them how to step on his feet so he could guide them around the floor. Arya giggled with delight as he spun her in careful circles. Ivy studied his technique with serious concentration before announcing that she could do it better herself. He's good with them, Sage observed quietly. Don't read too much into it. Phoenix, who is he? And why do those little girls look exactly like him? Phoenix felt her sister's sharp gaze and knew that secrets were becoming impossible to maintain. It's complicated. How complicated? The kind of complicated that could change everything if I'm not careful. Are you in some kind of trouble? I'm trying very hard not to be. As the song ended, Phoenix watched Ronan thank her daughters politely and guide them back to where she and Sage were standing. Thank you for the dance, ladies. You're both excellent partners. Can we dance again later? Arya asked. That's up to your mama. Mama, can we? Phoenix looked into her daughters' bright, happy faces and felt her heart breaking with the complexity of the choice she was facing. We'll see, sweetheart. Right now it's getting late, and tomorrow we're flying back to Portland. I don't want to go back to Portland, Ivy announced. I like Seattle. Seattle is nice, but Portland is our home. Why can't we have two homes? Phoenix felt Ronan's eyes on her face as Ivy asked the innocent question that cut to the heart of everything. Because sometimes one home is enough. Later that night, after the girls were asleep in the hotel bed they were sharing, Phoenix sat by the window looking out at the Seattle skyline and trying to decide what to do. Her phone buzzed with a text from Ronan. "Thank you for letting me dance with them. They're amazing. I understand if you need time to think about everything, but please don't shut me out completely. I want to be better. I want to be someone worthy of being their father." Phoenix stared at the message for a long time before responding. Actions speak louder than words. If you want to prove you've changed, prove it through consistency and patience, not grand gestures and emotional appeals. Tell me how. Figure it out yourself. That's what being a parent means. The next morning, Phoenix packed their bags and prepared to return to Portland with a mixture of relief and anxiety. She was eager to get back to their normal routine, but she knew that Ronan's reappearance in their lives had changed something fundamental. As they waited for their flight at SeaTac Airport, Arya tugged on Phoenix's sleeve. "Mama, are we going to see Ronan again?" Phoenix's breath caught. "Why do you ask?" "Because he looked at us like he wanted to keep us. And you looked at him like you were scared he might try. You're very perceptive, sweetheart. Is he going to try to keep us?" "No one is going to keep you anywhere you don't want to be. You're my daughters, and we're a family. Nothing will change that. But what if he wants to be part of our family?" Phoenix looked at her 4-year-old daughter's serious face and realized that children often understood complicated situations better than adults wanted to admit. "Would you want him to be part of our family?" Arya considered this carefully. "I think he's lonely. And I think you're sad when you think about him. Maybe if he was part of our family, you'd both be less sad." "It's not that simple, baby." "Why not?" "Because sometimes people hurt each other too badly to fix things. But you always tell us that sorry can fix mistakes if you really mean it. Some mistakes are too big for sorry to fix." "What kind of mistakes?" Phoenix struggled to find an age-appropriate way to explain betrayal, coercion, and the complexity of adult relationships. "The kind of mistakes that happen when people choose the wrong things to care about. Like caring about being important instead of caring about love?" Phoenix stared at her daughter in amazement. "Exactly like that. And Ronan chose to care about being important?" "Yes. But now he wants to care about love instead?" "I think so. But I'm not sure if it's too late for that choice to matter. Maybe we could give him a chance to try." Phoenix felt tears threatening as she listened to her 4-year-old daughter display more wisdom and forgiveness than most adults ever managed. "Maybe we could," she said quietly, "but very carefully and very slowly. Because we don't want to get hurt again. Because we want to make sure he really means it this time." The flight back to Portland was turbulent, with storm clouds and rough winds that had the plane bouncing through the sky. But the real turbulence was happening inside Phoenix's heart as she wrestled with the impossible decision of whether to let Ronan into their lives. Her rational mind told her to maintain the status quo. They were happy, secure, and thriving without him. Why risk disrupting that stability for someone who had already proven he couldn't be trusted with their happiness? But her daughter's questions and observations had planted seeds of doubt. Was she protecting them from potential hurt? Or was she depriving them of a chance to know their father? Was her refusal to consider reconciliation based on what was best for them, or what felt safest for her? "Mama, you're thinking very hard thoughts," Ivy observed as the plane hit another patch of turbulence. "How can you tell?" "You get a little wrinkle right here when you're thinking hard thoughts," Ivy said, pointing to the space between Phoenix's eyebrows. "You notice everything, don't you? Daddy always said noticing things is how you understand the world." Phoenix's blood went cold. "What did you say?" "I said noticing things is how you understand the world." "No, before that. You said Daddy always said." "Which Daddy?" Ivy looked confused. "Our Daddy. The one we met at the market and the wedding." "Ivy, sweetheart, when did he tell you that?" "When we were dancing. He said I was very good at noticing things about people, and that was a special talent. He said his little sister used to notice everything too." Phoenix felt panic rising in her throat. "Did he tell you he was your daddy?" "He didn't have to tell us." Arya chimed in matter-of-factly. "We could see it." "See what?" "That he has our eyes and our chin and our hands. Just like when you show us pictures of Grandma Rosa, and we can see where you came from." Phoenix stared at her daughters in shock. They had figured out Ronan's identity on their own, without any adult explanation or confirmation. "How long have you known?" Since the market, Ivy said. But we didn't want to say anything because you seemed scared. Are you scared of our daddy? Arya asked with concern. Phoenix struggled to find words. I'm not scared of him. I'm scared of what might happen if he becomes part of our lives, and then changes his mind. Why would he change his mind? Because he changed his mind before. Before you were born, he decided he didn't want to be a daddy. But maybe he was just scared too, Ivy suggested. Maybe he needed time to learn how to be brave enough for love. Phoenix felt tears streaming down her cheeks as she listened to her daughter's innocent wisdom. They had inherited their father's analytical intelligence and their mother's emotional insight, creating a combination that cut straight to the truth of complicated situations. What do you think we should do? She asked quietly. I think we should give him a chance to prove he's learned how to be brave, Arya said. But not a big chance, Ivy added. A little chance first, to see if he really means it. And if he doesn't mean it, then we'll still have each other, Arya said simply. And that's enough. But if he does mean it, then maybe we'll have something even better than enough, Ivy said. That night, back in their Portland home, Phoenix tucked her daughters into their beds and sat between them for their bedtime story ritual. What story would you like tonight? Tell us the story about the butterfly, Arya requested. It was their favorite story, one Phoenix had created to help them understand that beautiful things sometimes came from difficult changes. Once upon a time, there was a caterpillar who thought she was broken because she was different from all the other caterpillars. But she wasn't broken, Ivy continued, picking up the familiar narrative. She was just getting ready for her metamorphosis. And when she came out of her cocoon, she was the most beautiful butterfly anyone had ever seen, Arya added. But the most important part, Phoenix continued, was that she remembered being a caterpillar. She remembered how hard the change had been, and how scared she was, and how much she had to trust that the process would lead to something beautiful. And because she remembered, the girls said in unison, she could help other caterpillars who were scared of changing. That's right. She could help them understand that sometimes the most beautiful things come from the most difficult changes. Mama, Ivy said sleepily, do you think our daddy is having metamorphosis? Phoenix considered the question seriously. I think he might be trying to. Should we help him? What do you think? I think butterflies should help caterpillars, Arya mumbled, already half asleep. Even when they're scared? Especially when they're scared, Ivy whispered. Phoenix kissed both her daughters goodnight and sat in the darkness of their room, listening to their gentle breathing and thinking about metamorphosis, second chances, and the wisdom of children. The next morning brought a delivery that changed everything. Phoenix opened her front door to find not flowers or gifts, but a simple manila envelope with her name written in Ronan's distinctive handwriting. Inside was a letter and a legal document that made her hands shake as she read. Phoenix, I know that words are meaningless after what I put you through 3 years ago. I know that promises from me carry no weight because I've already broken the most important promise I ever made. So instead of more words, I'm offering you action. The attached document shows that I've resigned from Thorn Industries, effective immediately. I've also renounced any claim to my family's trust fund and removed myself from all inheritance plans. I'm walking away from everything that once mattered more to me than you and our children. I'm not doing this to manipulate you or to force your hand. I'm doing this because I realize that the man who chose family legacy over family love isn't someone worthy of being called a father. I don't know if you'll ever be able to forgive me, but I want Arya and Ivy to grow up knowing that their father chose them over everything else. Even if that choice came 3 years too late. I've started my own consulting firm with the money I saved from my salary at Thorn Industries. It's small and uncertain, but it's mine, and it's built on the principle that success means nothing if you don't have people you love to share it with. I'm not asking for anything except the chance to prove that I've learned what really matters. I'm not asking for forgiveness or for reconciliation. I'm just asking for the opportunity to be the father our daughters deserve, in whatever way you feel comfortable allowing. I love them already, Phoenix. I love their curiosity and their wisdom and the way they see the world with clear eyes and generous hearts. I love that they inherited your strength and your creativity and your ability to find hope in difficult situations. I love them, and I love you, and I'm finally brave enough to choose love over everything else. Ronan. Phoenix read the letter 3 times, then studied the legal documents that proved he had actually done what he claimed. resigned from his position as CEO of Thorn Industries, renounced his inheritance, walked away from billions of dollars and generations of family legacy. For her, for their daughters, for the chance to be someone worthy of their love. "Mama, why are you crying?" Arya asked, appearing in the kitchen doorway in her pajamas. "Because sometimes people surprise you," Phoenix said, wiping tears from her cheeks. "Good surprise or bad surprise?" "I'm not sure yet, sweetheart. Is it about our daddy?" Phoenix looked at her daughter's serious face and made a decision that would change all their lives. "Yes, it's about your daddy. And I think it's time we had a longer conversation about what that means." Can you imagine the conversation that's about to happen between a mother and her daughters about the father they're just beginning to know? Comment brave if you think Ronan's sacrifice proves he's finally ready to be the father they deserve. That afternoon, Phoenix sat on the living room floor with Arya and Ivy, their favorite picture books scattered around them as she tried to find the right words to explain 3 years of complicated history. "You remember how we talked about your daddy not being ready to be a parent when you were born?" She began carefully. "The one who lives far away," Ivy nodded. "Well, it turns out he wasn't really far away. He was in Seattle, which is where we used to live before you were born." "Why did we leave Seattle?" Arya asked, her artistic intuition picking up on the emotional undercurrents. "Because I needed to build a life where we could be safe and happy and loved. Were we not safe with our daddy?" Phoenix struggled with how much truth to share. "Your daddy wasn't ready to love us the way we deserve to be loved. He cared more about what other people thought than about taking care of his family. Like when kids at school care more about being popular than being kind." Ivy asked. "Exactly like that. But sometimes people learn from their mistakes and become better. Is that what happened to our daddy? I think he's trying to become better. He wrote me a letter saying he's sorry and that he wants to learn how to be a good father." Arya studied her mother's face with the intensity she usually reserved for her art projects. "Do you believe him?" "I want to believe him. But believing someone who hurt you before is scary. What did he do to show you he's sorry?" Ivy asked with her typical directness. Phoenix showed them the legal documents, explaining in simple terms that their father had given up his important job and lots of money to prove that being their daddy was more important to him than anything else. "He gave up money for us?" Arya asked with wonder. "Lots and lots of money. More money than we've ever seen. That must mean he really loves us," Ivy concluded with 4-year-old logic. "Maybe. But love is more than just giving up money. Love is showing up every day, being patient when you're cranky, reading bedtime stories even when he's tired. Should we give him a chance to try those things?" Arya asked. Phoenix looked at her daughter's hopeful faces and felt her heart breaking with the weight of the decision. "What do you think?" "I think people deserve second chances when they're really, really sorry," Arya said solemnly. "But only if they prove they mean it," Ivy added. "Not just with words. So we should let him visit us sometimes? See if he's good at being a daddy." "Yes," both girls said together. "But if he makes you sad again, he has to go away," Arya added fiercely. "Deal," Phoenix said, pulling them both into her arms. The first supervised visit happened the following weekend at a neutral location, the Portland Children's Museum. Phoenix watched nervously as Ronan knelt down to greet his daughters, his hands shaking slightly as he offered them each a small wrapped gift. "I brought you something," he said quietly. "But they're not expensive things. They're thinking things." Arya unwrapped a set of watercolor pencils with a small sketchbook. "For when you want to paint feelings that are too complicated for regular crayons." Ivy's gift was a science kit for growing crystals. "For when you want to understand how beautiful things form slowly, with patience and the right conditions." "Thank you," both girls said politely, though Phoenix could see they were still uncertain about this man who claimed to be their father. "Would you like to explore the museum together?" Ronan asked. "I promise to answer any questions you have, even the hard ones." For the next 2 hours, Phoenix watched Ronan navigate the delicate process of getting to know his daughters. He didn't try to buy their affection with grand gestures. Instead, he listened carefully when Arya explained her art projects, and he helped Ivy conduct experiments without taking over or showing off. "Why did you give up your important job?" Ivy asked as they sat in the museum's cafe sharing apple slices. "Because I realized that the most important job in the world is being your father, and I couldn't do both jobs well." "Were you scared to give up so much money?" Arya wanted to know. "Terrified. but I was more scared of missing any more time with you. What if we don't like you? Ivy asked with brutal honesty. Ronan was quiet for a moment, considering his answer carefully. Then I'll keep trying to become someone you could like. Being your father isn't something you earn once and then keep forever. It's something you have to earn every single day. Good answer, Ivy said with approval. Over the following weeks, Ronan proved his commitment through consistent, patient presence. He showed up for scheduled visits even when work was demanding. He remembered details about their interests and asked thoughtful follow-up questions. When Arya had a meltdown at the playground because another child knocked over her sandcastle, Ronan didn't try to fix it immediately. Instead, he sat with her while she cried and helped her find words for her frustrated feelings. I think he might actually be good at this daddy thing, Arya confided to Phoenix one evening after Ronan had spent the afternoon helping her create a picture book about their family. He listens to us like we're real people, Ivy added. Not like some grown-ups who pretend to listen but are really just waiting for us to stop talking. Phoenix felt her own defenses slowly crumbling as she watched Ronan prove himself through actions rather than words. When Ivy got sick with a stomach bug, he brought over homemade soup and read to her in quiet voices. When Arya's preschool had a father-daughter art day, he asked permission to attend and spent 2 hours helping her create a sculpture that looked nothing like what he'd planned but everything like what she'd envisioned. I owe you an apology, Phoenix said one evening after the girls were asleep, and she and Ronan sat on her front porch discussing the upcoming week's schedule. For what? For assuming you couldn't change. For being so determined to protect them from you that I almost deprived them of knowing their father. You were protecting them. That's what good mothers do. Good mothers also recognize when they might be wrong about something important. Ronan was quiet for a moment, studying her face in the porch light. Does this mean you're ready to trust me with them? I'm ready to try. Slowly. Carefully. What would that look like? Unsupervised visits. Overnight stays eventually. Maybe even. Phoenix paused, hardly believing she was considering this possibility. Maybe even shared custody. And us? What about us? Phoenix felt her heart racing as she met his gaze. I don't know yet. Learning to trust you as their father is different from learning to trust you as a partner. I understand. I'm willing to earn both, separately, for as long as it takes. It might take a very long time. I have the rest of my life. 6 months later, Phoenix stood in her kitchen making pancakes while Ronan helped Arya and Ivy set the table for Sunday breakfast. It had become their weekly tradition, a way to ease into the rhythms of being a family without the pressure of defining exactly what kind of family they were becoming. Daddy, tell us the story about when you were little and scared of butterflies, Arya requested as she carefully folded napkins. Why was I scared of butterflies? Ronan asked, playing along with the storytelling game they'd developed. Because you thought they might fly away if you got too close, Ivy explained seriously. And what did I learn? That if you're very patient and very gentle, sometimes beautiful things will choose to stay with you. Arya finished. Phoenix felt tears threatening as she listened to this metaphor her daughters had created to understand their father's journey from fear to love. That's right, Ronan said softly, his eyes meeting Phoenix's across the kitchen. Sometimes the most beautiful things in life are worth waiting for. The knock at the front door interrupted their family moment. Phoenix opened it to find an elegantly dressed older woman whose ice blue eyes and imperious bearing could only belong to one person. Margaret Thorne, Phoenix said, her voice carefully neutral. Ms. Caldwell, may I come in? I don't think that's a good idea. I think it's necessary. My son has made some choices that concern me greatly. Grandma Margaret? Arya appeared in the hallway, her face lighting up with curiosity rather than fear. Margaret's composure cracked slightly as she looked at her granddaughter for the first time. Hello, dear. Are you here to meet us? Daddy said you might want us sometime. Before Phoenix could intervene, Ivy joined her sister in the hallway. You look like Daddy. Same nose. Margaret stared at the twins with an expression Phoenix couldn't quite read. Shock, certainly, but also something that looked almost like wonder. They're beautiful, Margaret said quietly to Phoenix. Yes, they are. And brilliant. I can see it in their eyes. They get that from both sides of the family. Margaret was quiet for a long moment, studying the two little girls who were watching her with frank curiosity. I came here to convince you that my son's decision to abandon his responsibilities was temporary madness, she said finally. I came to offer you money to disappear again, to let him come back to his real life. And now I'm looking at my granddaughters for the first time, and I'm realizing that this is his real life. This is what matters. Ronan appeared in the hallway, his face tense with concern. Mother, what are you doing here? Meeting my granddaughters. Learning that sometimes the most important family legacy isn't money or property, but love and connection. Does this mean you want to be our grandma for real? Arya asked with typical directness. Margaret looked at her granddaughter's hopeful face and felt something she hadn't experienced in decades. The desire to be loved for who she was rather than what she represented. I would like that very much, if your parents think it's appropriate. Can she stay for pancakes? Ivy asked Phoenix. Phoenix looked at Ronan, who nodded slightly, then at Margaret, who looked more uncertain than she had probably ever appeared in public. There are enough pancakes for everyone, Phoenix said quietly. As they sat around the kitchen table sharing breakfast, Phoenix marveled at how much their lives had changed in less than a year. The family she had never thought possible was taking shape around her. Not perfect, not without complications, but real and loving and committed to choosing each other every day. Mama, Arya said as Margaret helped her cut her pancakes. I think our metamorphosis is almost finished. What makes you say that? Because we started as a caterpillar family with just you and me and Ivy. Then we grew a daddy wing, and now we're growing a grandma wing. Soon we'll be a whole butterfly family. And butterfly families are the most beautiful kind, Ivy added solemnly. Yes, they are, Phoenix agreed, catching Ronan's eye across the table and seeing her own amazement reflected there. Sometimes the most broken things become the most beautiful when they're given the chance to transform. Sometimes love really can conquer fear, pride, and the weight of past mistakes. And sometimes, the children we protect become the teachers who show us how to heal. In the end, the woman who had been forced to hide her pregnancy had built something more precious than revenge or vindication. She had built a family based on choice, growth, and the radical belief that people could change when love was worth fighting for. That was a legacy worth more than all the money in the world. If this story of transformation, forgiveness, and second chances moved you, subscribe for more incredible stories about the power of love to heal even the deepest wounds. Share this with someone who needs to remember that it's never too late to choose love over fear. And tell me in the comments, do you believe in second chances, or are some mistakes too big to forgive? Sometimes the most beautiful families are the ones that have to be rebuilt from broken pieces. Sometimes the greatest love stories are about finding your way back to each other after losing your way completely. And sometimes, the woman who was told she wasn't enough becomes the foundation upon which everything beautiful is built.